My name's Eli, and today we're going to be talking about how to manipulate the Atlas so that we can build a steady map supply while also achieving level 8 Awakener and killing our Conquerors efficiently. This video assumes that we've just finished the storyline in a new league. In order to do this, we need to discuss our terms and lay some ground rules. First, we have citadels. Citadels are what hold Watchstones. Watchstones increase the map tier range of the region that they're socketed into. For example, we socket one Watchstone in here, and our map range has increased. We now have yellow tier maps. We take it out, we only have white tier maps. Citadels are unlocked by beating a tier 3 or higher map boss in a zone where you haven't already discovered the citadel. Watchstones are dropped by Conquerors. Now let's define what we're looking at here and lay some ground rules for maps. On the Atlas, you have 8 zones, or regions if you like. These regions are outer and inner. Our outer regions are on the 4 corners here. So we have Haywark Hamlet, we have New Vastir, we have Lyra Arthane, and we have Ley Ajoris, or Lex Ajoris. Our inner regions, or our inner zones, are just the other 4 that are inside Tyrion's End, Glenitch Cairns, Valdos Rest, and Ley Proxima, or Lex Proxima. It's important to look at the Atlas this way because different rules govern these 2 sections, the outer and inner. Before we move on to our strategy, let's agree on how the game drops maps. When a map is dropped, the game will look at primarily the area level that you're in to determine what maps are able to drop in terms of tier. And then it looks at what maps you have active and completed on the Atlas. Let's assume that you have one Watchstone here, and you are doing a fields map. You kill the boss, and the game determines, okay, the boss can drop up to 2 levels higher for maps, so I'm going to pick a tier 7. It then looks at your Atlas and says, okay, what have you completed? And what's adjacent? We don't have any tier 7s adjacent connected by these lines to our fields map. But let's say for this argument that we've completed the arsenal map. Completed doesn't mean the bonus objective has been done. Completed means you've done the map and killed the map boss. Okay? So you've killed the fields boss. The game says, okay, a map drops and it's going to be 2 levels higher. Let's look at your Atlas. You only have Arsenal completed. None of your other tier 7s are completed in this example. It has to be an Arsenal map. That's how the game looks at the Atlas, and that's how you manipulate the Atlas as well. Okay, so far we've discussed citadels and how we find them. We've discussed Watchstones and what they do to map tier ranges. We've discussed the inner zones and the outer zones of the Atlas itself. And we've discussed how maps get chosen to drop. Real quick, before we get into our strategy of manipulating the Atlas with our Watchstones, I want to go over the map bonus objectives real quick because this is key to how I run my Atlas. When the league starts and I get past the story and we're here on maps, my objective is to obtain all maps that I can that I don't have the bonus of and run them. This is because in order to make sure that our map pool gets sustained, we need the bonus objective modifier. This means literally at the beginning of the league, I will go to the trade site, I will look at what maps I don't have, and I will funnel all of my currency into buying maps that I haven't completed the bonus objective of. Now you might be thinking when I say that this is a bad thing because it then dilutes your map pool because all of these maps are now available to drop. Remember, based on how maps get picked to drop. In reality, in practice, this isn't really a problem. It only affects our lowest tier maps, and we're not there very long. Okay, so you've been running maps, and in one of your 4 corners, you've run into Baron, your first Conqueror. You've killed him, and now you have 1 Watchstone. What we do here is we take our 1 Watchstone, and we place it immediately into one of our 4 inner zones. Doesn't matter which one, because whenever we don't have a map available to us, we go out and buy it. So for this example, I'm going to pick Tyrn's End. At this point, we're focusing on running maps in the other 3 corners that we haven't killed the Conqueror in before. For the first set of Watchstones, you can only get Conquerors to spawn in the outer zones. So for the purposes of this example, let's say that you killed your first Conqueror, Baron, in Haywark Hamlet. That's where this stone is from, as you can see here. We put it in here, and now we go about and we kill the other 3 Conquerors. And so every time you get one of their stones, you're going to place them into their respective slots there. The reason we do this is so that we can abuse how the game determines which maps to drop. Because we have completed these maps, presumably, and any that you don't complete, you want to complete immediately, buy them, however you have to do it. Anytime a yellow tier map is going to drop, either it gets a +1 bonus from rare and magic monsters, or +2 bonus from the map boss, the game says, okay, well, the only tier 6s and 7s that can drop are the ones that they've completed and that are adjacent to the map they're running. It's not adjacent to the map they're running, so the only ones they've completed are the ones in Tyrn's End. So here's a Tyrn's End map. This is why we socket 1 Watchstone from our first Conqueror immediately into one of the inner 4 zones before we go about completing the other 3 Conqueror drops from the other corners. Okay, once you've completed up to this point, you have your 3 Watchstones, and you've presumably, hopefully, built up a decent enough map pool with this tier 2 zone. So you have your tier 5 maps dropping tier 6s, tier 7s. Before you move into your Tyrn's End maps and you start running them, you want to place 2 of these Watchstones into an adjacent inner zone. In this example, I'm going to go over here. We'll place 2, and there we go. Any of these higher tier maps that you don't have completed, you want to go out and buy, again, just like we did before, and make sure that you at least complete the map. Ideally, you want to get the bonus objective. For yellow maps, you have to use an alchemy orb on them. They have to be rare in order to get the bonus. What we do now is we abuse the system again. So whenever we're running our Tyrn's End maps, and we're running, say, our tier 6s and 7s, and the game says, well, a tier 8 or a 9 is going to drop, or a 10, I need to pick one. It's going to look here and say, well, these are the only maps that exist on the atlas and presumably are completed. So it has to be one of these. Now, this is important. The precursor to moving to the next zone, the next region, is you're going to kill all 4 Conquerors in Tyrn's End. Let me say that again. You're going to run maps in Tyrn's End until you've killed all 4 Conquerors. By the time you've done this, assuming you've been building your map objective bonus, you probably have a decent amount of maps ready in your next section of Lex Proxima. And let's go ahead and look at what that looks like now. There we go, like magic. Here are our 4 Watchstones from the Conquerors that we killed in Tyrn's End. Now, before we move to our next zone, we're going to take 3 of our Watchstones, and we're going to pick Valdo's Rest, and we're going to put crimson and blue. Doesn't really matter the colors. At this point, it doesn't matter if you leave this Watchstone in for Tyrn's End or not, because presumably, hopefully, we're going to be running maps from this zone for the foreseeable future. And again, we're going to kill all 4 Conquerors in Lex Proxima before we move on to our next zone. So we're going to presumably build a high enough map pool of Valdo's Rest while we complete the Conquerors in Lex Proxima, the zone preceding it. And remember, whenever you unlock a new zone, you want to look at the maps that it unlocks on the atlas and go out and buy those maps. Run them, make sure you get the objective bonus if you can. For red tier maps, you have to make them rare, and you have to corrupt them with a Veil Orb. The game tries to throw a wrench here because when you use a Veil Orb on a map, it can change tier to a different map. I wasn't kidding when I said I funnel all of my money into this. Now let's say you've beaten all 4 Conquerors in Lex Proxima, so you have their stones. There we go. Now we're going to do the same thing that we just did. We'll take these stones and we'll place them in our next zone of Glenitch Cairns. And now we're going to run all of the Valdo's Rest maps that we've accumulated from running Lex Proxima. And we're going to do this again. We're going to kill all 4 Conquerors here, and we're going to obtain their stones. Right now, as it stands, we have 16 total Watchstones. When we complete our process and beat Glenitch Cairns, the process being killing all of the Conquerors on the inner zones, when we get our Glenitch Cairns Watchstones here, then we will fight Sirus for the first time. Now, when Sirus is available to you, you talk to Xana, and you can say, take me to the Awakener's whatever homeland, whatever she says. Once you spawn those portals, you've completed the Atlas as far as it's concerned. It doesn't care whether you've killed Sirus or not. You can now move on to building your Awakening level to level 8. And to do this, because we've killed all 4 Conquerors in each of the inner zones, now we can only spawn Conquerors in our 4 outer zones. Now I'm going to use some editing magic here to put all these Watchstones where they should be. And there we go. So as you can see, our 4 outer zones all have 4 Watchstones. And again, remember back to how maps drop. When a map is picked, the game looks at the Atlas and sees what maps are available currently on the Atlas. The only red tier maps are in the 4 outer zones. So we won't be dropping these inner zone maps unless it's low enough and adjacent to the map we're running. So for example, if we're running Cemetery map, we could still get a tier 3 shore map. In addition, remember the first set of Watchstones, we had to kill 1 in the outer zones. This means that we can't target farm 1 outer region for all 4 Watchstones. We have to do 3 in 1 or 2 in 2. But once we kill all 4 Conquerors again, we can fight Sirus. These are known as Sirus cycles. Once you get to this point, you repeat this cycle until you have Awakening level 8 and you have all 32 Watchstones. Additionally, if you ever have any question, you can mouse over one of your citadels and it'll bring this screen here. What this is telling you is which Watchstones you've obtained and what the requirements are for that zone for a Conqueror to spawn. So if you want to double check and make sure you have Watchstones in the right spot, you can always look at this. But remember, we're doing the outer zones for the first 4 Watchstones, and then for the next 16, we're going into the inner zones, and then for the following 12, back to the outer zones. So at this point, you know what the map bonus objectives are. You also have available to you Awakening bonus objectives. Now, if we mouse over Mausoleum map, for example, the Awakening bonus is complete this map with at least tier 14 and Awakening level 1. The Atlas determines your Awakening level by how many sets of 4 Watchstones you have implanted into the Atlas citadels at any given time. So right now, because we have our 4 outer zones with 4 Watchstones each, we have Awakening level 4. This is how you determine whether or not you can obtain the Awakening bonus. And as you can see, you just have to complete the map. There's no special condition beyond the Awakening level. Now, what the Awakening level bonus does is it effectively increases your item quantity for the bonuses on your map. So when you roll a map with an alchemy orb, for instance, you get your bonuses of increased quantity and pack size, and these are all related to which specific modifiers you roll on the map. What the Awakening bonus objective does, it amplifies those modifiers, which in turn increases the item quantity. It also gives you an additional chance, as you can see here, to get more Atlas missions, like your Xana missions, for example, where you can force the game to spawn Xana in your map. There are a number of ways in which you can supplement your maps and find ones that you currently don't have unlocked. One thing you can do is take 3 maps that share a name, like Basilica here, sell them to a vendor, and you will get 1 random map one tier higher in the same region. Another thing you can do is use Orb of Horizons. This is more effective the higher tier you go because there are fewer maps total in the pool for, say, tier 14, 15, and 16. So you can use this orb to reforge and change a map that you've already beaten into a map potentially that you don't have. This is great when you're first building into a tier. Also, you can use the Harbinger's Orb to take a map that's, say, tier 13 and make it into a random tier 14. Also, Xana has a stock of maps for sale. She replenishes every time you level up or every 24 hours, and most of her maps cost chance orbs, with the higher ones costing alchemy orbs and chance orbs. Either way, it's typically a good deal when your goal is to increase your map objective bonus. As always, if you found this video helpful, you liked what you saw, go ahead and tell me in the comments below and hit like and subscribe. Until next time, stay sane, Exiles.